Wednesday, April the 29th. Lake level is just under 917. It's been pretty consistent the last week or so. It was up around 918, 918 and a half after the rain last week, and they've been pulling it pretty good. But water temperature, it's starting to warm up a little bit more, but it's still hovering right around that 60-degree mark. It doesn't seem like you can get much above that. It'll be 57, 58. When I've been up in the river arms fishing, there's been some low 60s, 62, 63 late in the day. But hopefully things will start to get back to normal next week. I think Sportsman Factory Outlet may be opening sometime next week. I don't know how much longer I can go without a haircut, but I hope the barbershop opens up here pretty quick too. But fishing's been good. We're catching them a lot of different ways, and the next month or so is just going to be a ball. But if you're down lake, a Ned rig is working real good. There's just so many different things that'll work. But if you're like Kimbling City down the state park, you want to fish a lot of them flat gravel points and pockets. One day they'll be on the point, the next day they'll be on the sides of it. Sometimes they'll be all the way in the backs of the pockets. But it seems like a lot of the fish are anywhere from 4 feet deep to about 10 or 12. So if you keep the boat in about 18 to 20 feet, throw a Ned rig, a tube, you can throw a split shot rig. There's just so many different things that'll work right now with them fish up there shallow. A couple different ways I've been rigging up a tube. This is a little 3-inch Strike King Bitsy tube, and I've got a ultimate Ned jig up inside of it with the little wire weed guard. And then I'll throw a little bit bigger one, a 4-inch, and I've actually got a 1/4 ounce head tucked up inside of it. I'll poke the eyelet out and tie it right on there. Now, like I say, you can fish a Carolina rig, a little French fry, centipede, but day in and day out, the little Ned rig's been the most consistent for me. Another thing you might try in the same area, some days they'll bite in the swim bait a little bit better than the Ned rig. And I'll throw like a 2.75 or a 3.2. And I kind of mix it up with some on an underspin, some just on the jig head by itself. And I'll fish these in the same place on the flat gravel points and pockets. And these things that I'm talking about have been working up in the White River, up in the James. Most of the lake is, really good shape as far as water clarity. Now, there still is some moss in spots. We had a couple days last week when it was real windy and we were throwing crankbait quite a bit. We were catching them on a rock crawler and a wigglewort. We did have to fight the moss, when we was down in the Kimberling area. But, we caught some good fish on it too, some largemouths. I've been catching some fish flipping. Couple different jigs. We actually did, we were shooting some videos the last few days, and the water is just about out of the bushes, but a lot of these fish were dirt shallow. The boat was in 1 foot to 1.5 feet, and they were back in the willows, what willows had water on them. But one of the ones that was working the best, the water was a little bit stained, was an Okeechobee craw, a 3/8 ounce, 5-fish lures, ultimate cover jig. And with this water dropping, if you back out just a little bit to like the last little depth in the creek where there's a little channel, these fish will get on the rocks. And a lot of times that's when I'll switch to the ultimate finesse jig. The cover jig, without a doubt, is probably the best jig I've ever used in the real thick, heavy brush. The ultimate finesse jig will work in that same situation, but this one, a little bit smaller profile, it's got half a skirt. It seems to work better on the ledgers and just out in front of the bushes. Another way we've been catching them up there is, like I say, there's just so many different ways, but we've been Texas rigging like a little baby brush hog. This is actually a Strike King, forget the actual name of it, but it's a Strike King bait. This one here is a beaver bait, and this is a Strike King structure bug. I've got the weight pegged, 1/4 ounce, 5/16. I like this a little bit better in the bushes. If I'm fishing more around the outside of the ledges, I'll fish, you know, the little baby brush hog on like a 3/0 hook, 1/4 ounce weight. And if I'm not flipping in the bushes, I won't peg the weight. I like the weight pegged when I'm throwing in the thick, heavy cover so that the bait goes down to the bottom of the bush. A lot of times, if you don't have the weight pegged, the bait will get hung up in the bush, the weight will go down to the bottom. And in that situation, you definitely want the weight pegged to get down, you know, to get the bait down in there. Now, topwater. You want to have some kind of topwater bait on. I've been throwing a sexy dog, which is real similar to a Zara spook. A spook will work fine, any kind of pop-R. I think even a redfin will work. I just like the walking action, and most of the time I throw a white with a little bit of chartreuse on it. But I haven't been able to catch very many topwater fish unless, you know, they're up there chasing some bait fish, chasing some shad. But it's the time of year where you want a topwater bait on the, you know, deck of the boat all year round. Catching some on a fluke. In a lot of the areas where I'm catching the smallmouth on a Ned rig and a swim bait, try taking a fluke and throwing it out in front of the boat in that 15 to 20 foot. There's several fish out there suspended, and that seems to be working better for me on the sunny days. We've been playing around quite a little bit with a methylated floating worm as well. Backs in some of the pockets where the fish are spawning. And I found that to be working better later in the day when the sun is up. But, you know, I think there's still a whole lot more fish left to come in to spawn, because I'm still not seeing a ton of fish up there cruising, you know, up there shallow around the bed. So I think another, I don't know when the full moon is. I think it's about a week and a half. But we're going to have a big, huge wave of fish, you know, coming into spawn. And then as some of these fish get done spawning, like I said, you catch them on a Carolina rig, a wobblehead or a jig on some of these main lake and secondary points. What you're going to find is some of the fish will be pre-spawn fish, and now that some of them are getting done, some of them will be post-spawn fish. And as the fish get done spawning, the bite gets a little bit more consistent out there on the bottom, as does the topwater bite. So next few weeks, there's really going to be some good fishing. So we'll talk to you until next week. Good luck, good fishing.